that we, the church, don't teach our young people about some of the concepts called adultery, called fornication, called birth controls, called bizarre sexual behaviors. And since we don't teach them that, and they mature and learn these from the streets, when the young girl gets pregnant, we are ready to sit in judgment. We put the young ladies out of church. We put them out. The schools at that time would put a pregnant young lady out of school. The schools have learned something differently, which brings me to a point that makes this more present for me. One of our friends visited the school that we began this exegesis about, and he met some of the young ladies who were pregnant. And he reported to me such terms as these young ladies were beautiful. And he was impressed that though they had made a mistake, they were still trying to seek getting an education, because they realized that that baby that they were carrying was going to be an awesome responsibility, and the responsibility was theirs, and that they needed a better education to qualify for better jobs, etc. You know I'm talking to now. Those persons who talked about that they had a welfare economics or mentality, or that they were trying to collect reparations. Well, he was dismayed. My friend was dismayed when he said that he found out that some of the young ladies were homeless. Can you fathom a teenager homeless without the support of families and friends and communities? And in deference to being pregnant and in deference to being homeless, these young ladies still came to school to get a better education. That brings us back to this teaching mechanism. And I have to tell you that we're going to address the church first in what they should be teaching teenagers. And we're going to address the home. And then we're going to address the school. And finally, we'll look at the society. The question that the church has to the church has to deal with: how should man live godly in this present world? So I'm not saying something new and different in the 21st century. It was true in the first century, it was true in the last century, the 20th, and it's still true today. And the church has to take on the responsibility that it has differing age groups and different developmental stages within their church, and they have to talk about the concepts that will cause their women, their men, and their children to live godly. Now, I know that young people are in a stage of development, and the terminology about adultery and fornication and birth control and condoms and masturbation might not be easy to take for pre-teenagers and teenagers. But I think that we who are educated and we're so brilliant in the psychology, that's the study of human behavior, that we will figure out ways to approach the teenagers so that they will comprehend at their level and take on the easy concepts as we move toward the more difficult concept. The church has a responsibility. And I want to get into that responsibility. And so I'm going to say we're going to pause for the cause. And when we come back, we'll move into session 2. The church's major responsibility, as far as I'm concerned, in relative to this issue, is to establish that the family is the basis of this society. We have a defined social order, and the family is at the bottom of it. And so this society is made up of the family structure. So we are hundreds and thousands of families that are related by blood, related by spirit, and related by the fact that God made us. And so in the teaching of our young people, the young people have got to know and understand that they're a part of a large organization that has structure and rules. Another thing that the church must teach us is that man has a dichotomy. Well, if you don't like that word dichotomy, or is a dichotomy, he has a dual nature, two dimensions to him. Man's strongest drive is a sexual, biological drive to reproduce himself. That's what God told him to do in Adam and Eve in the garden. And when God destroyed the world and reestablished the system through Noah, he told Noah and his sons and daughters-in-law to be fruitful and multiply. And man is a spiritual creature because he's made by God, but man is also a biological creature, and he desires to reproduce. And I have to laugh to myself, I like to chuckle to myself, because Israel went into Egypt with 79 or 80 persons. When they came out 400 years later, they numbered over 400,000 men. And I do believe I'm right when I said they didn't count that's not counting the women and the children. And so don't tell me that man does not like to engage in copulation and produce children. Another thing that the church has to address itself with is, of course, marriage. The concept of marriage in this society is that we have children when a man and a woman have come together and become one. Yes, we as African Americans understand that dynamics because of what happened to us in slavery time, and we really don't know some of our own relatives because we were treated like we were cattle. But the society says, the Bible says, from the religious point of view, that the man and the woman must come together after they have been married to make one flesh to reproduce. Notice that Adam and Eve were not given the responsibilities of reproducing until God had performed the wedding ceremony.